The meeting will come to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Iannarino.
Here.
Porter.
Here.
Kane.
Here.
Han.
Here.
Smolka.
Here.
Chupai.
Here.
Wong.
Here.
This evening, we're going to be led in the pledge by some thespians from Winston Campus Junior High. And before they do that, I'm going to let Jason Klein talk about a little performance they're going to do for us.
So these are students who are performing Into the Woods, which is our musical this year. It will be held next week at Winston Campus. We'll be doing both daytime shows and a show on Tuesday night, if you'd like to join us at 7 o'clock. It's going to be a great show, and I'll let everybody introduce themselves, starting with Ms. Gunderson.
I'm Mary Govertson. I am the musical director and the comprehensive music teacher at Winston Campus. We have here about 20% of our cast, and they are ready to sing.
I'm Leo. I'm the baker. I'm John Carlo. I'm Cinderella's prince.
I'm Leslie Gross, and I'm Red Riding Hood. I'm Maddie, and I'm Cinderella. I'm Mariah, and I'm Cinderella's mom. I'm Ivy, and I'm Milky I'm Sky, and I'm the baker's wife. I'm Abigail, and I'm Rapunzel. Careful the things you say, children will listen. Careful the things you do, children will see and learn. Children may not obey, but children will listen. Children will look to you for which way to turn to learn what to be. Careful before you say, listen to me. Children will listen. And wolves appear into the woods and through the fear. You have to take the journey into the woods and down the dell. In vain perhaps, but who can tell? Into the woods to lift the spell, into the woods to lose the longing, into the woods to have the child, to wed the prince, to get the money, to save the house, to kill the wolf, to find the father, to have the kingdom, to have to wed, to get, to save, to kill, to keep, to go to the festival. Into the woods, into the woods, into the woods, and out of the woods. And happy ever after.
You ready for the pledge? Okay, we're going to stand and rise for the pledge.
Nicely done, you guys. So Tuesday at 7 at Winston? Great.
Well done. That was a great performance. Good luck on the show. Congratulations. Thanks for coming. Nice. Really well done. Good luck at the show. Good job, guys. Thank you for coming.
The mission statement of School District 15 is to produce world-class learners by building a connected learning community. Dr. Thompson?
We'll have two reports from our schools tonight. The first, did you guys decide who's going first? Jason, you going to go first? Amy, you want to go first? Go ahead. Amy Malinsky from Jane Addams School will come up and tell us a little about her school.
Thank you.
Chairs are stuck together. Hi, everyone. It's
the very first test.
That's true. Absolutely. Dr. Thompson, President Shupai, distinguished members of the Board of Education, I'm Amy Malinsky, and I'm fortunate enough to be here tonight as the principal of Jane Addams Elementary in Palatine. Jane Addams is an energizing learning space of 587 students from diverse backgrounds who demonstrate an eagerness each day to grow and to learn. My journey to District 15 is full of rewarding work with strong, transformational leaders, much like yourselves. While I have supported students as an elementary teacher, a special education teacher, a district literacy coach, and an administrator, my role it continues to be to reinforce these expectations with students. As a steward, just like the district rewards us to be with our vision to believe in every child to grow academically, socially, and emotionally. While this year is my first year at Jane Addams, I have been in District 15 for 4 years as an assistant principal at Kimball Hill in Rolling Meadows. Through my experiences and the support of the district, we work to expand our partnerships with others, with various and several community organizations. I'd like to share a few of those with you now. At this time, we partner successfully with Kids Hope USA, who monitors students in grades 4, 5, and 6, Hands-On Suburban Chicago, who we actively pen pal with intergenerational pen pal program and one-on-one mentoring with students 4, 5, and 6, Harper College, Fluid Waste Management, and Kiwanis Club of Palatine. Jane Addams has 2 full-day bilingual kindergarten classes, 2 kindergarten sections, 2 first and second grade classes, 4 multi-age sections, 2 third grade bilingual sections, 2 third grade regular classrooms, and also 4, 5, and 6th grade classrooms. We also offer many clubs at Jane Addams. We'd love for you to come and visit us sometime at noon and view some of our wonderful clubs. We have 2 student councils because we have so many students that are interested in participating in student council. One is a primary student council and one is an intermediate student council. We offer dance club, Girls on the Run in the spring, chorus, studio production, Lego League, intramurals, and Spanish. We'd love to have you visit. This year, we had 2 wonderful family events. One was our PBIS Family Night on October 12th. We had over 100 families, and our amazing green team, coached by Sherry Fox, one of our 6th grade teachers, organized this event to increase family engagement around PBIS, gather family input through a survey, and provide another link to homeschool communication. We look forward to celebrating in March with our multicultural fair. This will be another year that our family honors and celebrates our diversity through dance, food, song, literature, and the arts. We welcome you all to witness and enjoy our model of multicultural diversity at its finest. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Dr. Thompson, Board President Shupai, distinguished members of the Board of Education. Thank you for providing us this opportunity tonight to highlight some of the great things that are taking place at Winston Campus Junior High. My name is Jason Klein. I'm excited to be the principal at Winston Campus Junior High and part of District 15. While I'm new to the school district as a staff member this year, I've lived in the community for a few decades now, and I'm a parent in our school district and have been lucky enough to serve students in nearby school districts as a teacher, a principal, and at central office. Winston Campus Junior High serves an extremely diverse group of approximately 750 7th and 8th grade students who live in the northeast quadrant of our school district. Since the start of this year, students and staff members and parents have begun to rally around our new hashtag, Winspired, which you can find in use on Facebook, Twitter, and soon on Instagram. This same sentiment has also come to life in our school on a daily basis. Teachers are taking advantage of the instructional focus on innovation that has been spurred on by having Chromebooks in the hands of all of our students, as the teachers have sought to create new lessons that are more engaging and better differentiated for all students than ever before. Winston campus teachers are asking questions about the nature of learning and what skills our students will need for their futures, and trying to make adjustments in lessons and units in response to this. Like all of the junior highs in District 15, Winston Campus is proud to offer a full range of academic and extracurricular activities. At the same time, we'd like to highlight a few specific programs that are in place at Winston Campus. First, mariachi. Over the past few years, Winston Campus has been able to offer multiple sections of mariachi among our enrichment course offerings. These classes take students of all experience and ability levels and cultures and provide them with opportunities to learn and experience different mariachi instruments, traditional mariachi music, and be able to perform mariachi for real audiences. Community school. In partnership with the POC, 3 days per week, Winston Campus students are able to stay well into the evening as part of our community school, doing everything from homework to enrichment activities that range from cooking and crafts to yoga and open gym. In addition to the student activities that are central to community school also offers a full slate of parent activities, which allow parents to both partake in the activities and gain parent education experiences. These activities and the positive culture around community skill both build real skills and create a stronger connection between home and school. STEM Club, a robotics team, and our STEM classes. In addition to our Project Lead the Way classes during the school day, two of our teachers, Ms. Ruiz and Mr. Novak, run our after-school STEM club. This includes our robotics team that competes in VEX robotics competitions. With support from grants, including from the 1-5 Foundation, these extracurricular activities allow students to participate in high-level engineering, design, and coding while having a really good time. This year, we've also partnered with Palatine High School for the first time during our school day robotics classes. And Winston Campus students have had the opportunity to work with Palatine High School robotics students and staff members to expand their experiences. Just last week, this partnership resulted in 100 Winston Campus students spending most of the day at Palatine High School engaged in real robotics activities at Palatine High School, like they'll be able to do starting next year. And our studio club. For many years, Winston Campus has been proud to broadcast live daily video announcements throughout the school. These announcements are completely run by and feature students, and they're a critical part of building and enhancing our school community and ensuring that all students start our day ready to learn and able to take advantage of everything that Winston Campus has to offer. With the hands-on nature of running the club, students not only learn technical aspects of media production, but they learn these really important life skills like collaboration, self-direction, and working under tight deadlines. So, we think we offer a really exciting environment that's important for students who are 12 and 13 and 14-year-olds. Each day at the end of the announcements, our anchors, who's ever on air that day, they sign off by saying this: have a great day. And don't forget to stick together and get Winspired. With that, we hope that you can follow what's going on. Visit us at Winston Campus. Thanks very much for tonight's opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy and Jason. Those were great.
Very informative. I think that was a great idea that Mike and Lisa thought of, to have the schools report every month. I think it's been really beneficial, so thanks.
I agree.
So the first item in my section, were you going to say something? I'm sorry.
No, I was just, that was a great idea. It is neat, though, to hear from each administrator's perspective the wonderful things that are going on at the school, where we know a little bit of some of it, but we don't know the depth of what's happening every day.
Thank you. So the first item in my section is our annual Student Achievement Report. And so I'd like to invite up Doctors Edgar and Swanland. Yes, thank you. I just call her Laura most of the time, so I could reprieve Swanland so quickly. Sorry about that, Laura.
I actually got excited because I saw Dr. Schnorr's name on there, and I thought I got out of this. Thank you, Julie. This is always the most nerve-wracking time. The first time we actually did this, I did it on an iPhone, believe it or not. So it's pretty amazing that you can do anything with a handheld device these days.
can't get it up, we'll get you guys a,
Right.
a flip chart and a couple of Sharpies, and
Right.
you can just draw graphs.
Well, when I first completed the doctorate, you go to conferences and you present all your things, and you'd always bring a big packet of transparencies with you no matter where you went, because the AV was horrible, and it was destined to always fail. And after a while, you'd go to these conferences and you'd bring your transparencies, and they no longer have the projectors to them, so you were stuck with PowerPoint or nothing. And if we can't, you guys have a copy of this, we can certainly walk through that if we can't get this up for you in a few moments.
Mark can't do it, no one can do it.
I was going to say, yeah, that's right.
No pressure, Mark.
That's right. Hey, look at that. So Mark, maybe after the board meeting, you can help me at my house, a few things.
Okay, so I just have to navigate.
Perfect. All right, so we're trying a couple of different things this year. This last year, we invested in a software program called Tableau, and Tableau is a visualization system that is able to connect with a database and provide dynamic, real-time displays in a variety of data, from absences to grades to achievement and whatnot. So we're at the starting point with this and building our capacity with it, but we decided to move away from PowerPoint and showcase this new software at this important meeting. So Dr. Thompson, members of the board, thank you for being here for tonight's presentation. This is the annual board achievement report. It's a time where we take pause to look at student outcomes at the district level.
And so in this report, what you're going to see is our district compared to the state. We'll be looking at national comparisons. We'll be looking at achievement data in Spanish. We'll also be looking at how students have grown over time, and cohort analysis, and by group, and then finally some high school outcomes for District 15 students.
An important thing to remember as we discuss this and go through each of the things, and as you think about the questions that you'd want to ask for this, is that this really should be considered the first part of a two-part presentation to the board. This presentation is meant to provide a very global view of the district from a bird's eye view. This followed in June by an update on our progress on understanding and developing plans to address the achievement gap, in which there will be a much more specific relay of information that will kind of showcase our understanding and how we want to build some plans to address the achievement gap in District 15. So that'll be something in June that will follow this and build upon the information that started tonight. So this first slide here captures our results on the PARCC exam. The PARCC exam is the mandated state assessment that is given to every student in Illinois grade 3 through 8 and is given in the spring. On the left the graph on the left illustrates how District 15 compared to the state. The PARCC exam reports its results as the percent of students that have met or exceeded a proficiency standard at each grade. So if you look on the leftmost bar, you'll see that District 15 had 43% of its students meet or exceed in the ELA or English Language Arts area, compared to the state of 37%. So we've exceeded in that area for the last 3 years, and we currently are above it. In math, we've had 42% of students meet or exceed the proficiency targets, and the state average has been 31. Now, the PARCC exam has been and continues to be a controversial measure. It really has been criticized for being a very rigorous and demanding measure that might underestimate a student's ability to be successful in future environments or be ready to move on to the next year. So one thing about the PARCC exam that people have noted is that it could misrepresent how well a student or a district or whatnot is performing. So one way to look at this is that we are above the state. Another way to look at it is to look at how we compare to all the districts across Illinois that give this to grades 3 through 8. So if you look at our math results and you say, well, how does 42% stack up against the rest of the districts in Illinois? It actually exceeds 80%. So 79 point, rounded up to 80%. So actually, that result is a very favorable result in the math area and very strong. If you look at 43% in the literacy area, that actually equates to exceeding 64% of the districts. Now, 50% would be exactly the average. So it just goes to show that even though these results may appear to not be as positive as one would expect, when you really look at it in comparison to how districts are performing across the state, it's actually a very good performance. If we move on to the right side of this, you see the right side graph, it illustrates how we've performed on this PARCC exam over the last 3 years. So the bottom is mathematics, and it illustrates that we have been relatively stable over the last 3 years. Likely this is due in part to our adoption of a math curriculum that is very aligned with the Common Core. It probably has provided our students with a benefit that even in the face of this very rigorous exam, we've been able to maintain a very stable performance over time. One thing that you'll notice is that the ELA results have appeared to have gone down from a high of 56% in 2015 to this year of 43%. One thing to note with this is we have had a change in how the PARCC has been administered from entirely paper to entirely online. But more with that, we see that where math has had a larger adoption, our literacy curriculum has really not been updated for the last 15 years. It's the current curriculum that is on the rotation of consideration for revision and review. So I think it's good timing as we see these results. It coincides very well with a look at our literacy materials district-wide. If we go to the next set of graphs, this is illustrating our students' achievement on the MAP test. The MAP test is an achievement test that we give inside our district voluntarily to better understand our students, track their progress, and look at their needs. The MAP test is given to all students grade 2 through grade 8. It's given on the computer, and it's given more than one time a year at each of our schools. The leftmost graph illustrates how students do on average compared to the national average. So in math, there's a number at the top of the bar, 55, and what that means is the average student in District 15 scores at the 55th percentile. What that means is they score better than or equal to 55% of equivalent students, same grade. With reading, it's 57. So they score as well or better than 57% of same grade students. What this means is that both these areas are above the national average. The difference of 2 points is fairly nominal. Now, one thing that we see over when we look at the right graph, where we look at our MAP test results now illustrated over the last 3 years, we see two things. We see that reading is slightly above math, and we see that both math and reading are very stable over the last 3 years, which is a different pattern than what we saw on the previous slide with the PARCC exam. One thing to note is that the MAP test is a very straightforward and conventional test of reading. It uses only multiple choice items. It's very straightforward. It's probably the exams that we were used to in our schooling, college, whatever. The PARCC exam is a much different animal in the sense that it requires written responses and it's much more cognitively loaded. So it very well could be that even though our basic straightforward reading skills have remained stable, there are other aspects of reading that the PARCC exam is picking up that the MAP test simply doesn't. That might be one explanation for the difference between these two patterns. A few things about the MAP test as well is we use it for more than just looking at our achievement. It's something that we use to track student growth. We look at it for instructional guidance, and we use it for different decision making like placements and whatnot across the district. So it really has a very large role in our district for much of our decision making. Now, the previous two slides illustrated the state and our own exam that looks at reading and math. A downside of that is that those exams are given in English. We have a significant portion of our student body whose native language is Spanish, and many of our students have a native language other than English or even in Spanish. But we have a achievement test called the Logramos that we give yearly, which looks at how a student's literacy skills are developed in Spanish. and those students are also compared to other students who take this test in Spanish and have similar backgrounds. So this graph here illustrates 2 years' worth of Legramos results for our district against the national average, and it's also reported as the percentile. So in 2015-16, the average student who took this test in District 15 scored better than 64% of similar students who took this test. The national average is 50. In 2016, that average score was 60. Now, this graph, the way it's laid out, 64 and 60 look like a meaningful difference. It's unlikely that that really is. That's probably an artifact of how we by default chose to put the x-axis or the y-axis that shows the numbers. It also indicates that one thing to know, every year we increase the grades that take this exam. So this year I think we went to 5th grade, is that right? No, 5th grade. So each year we actually test more students who are further away from instruction in their native language, Spanish. So really we're actually very proud of these results because we're testing more children who have had a break from native language instruction, and we're still getting very, very strong results. It's a very positive sign. So we're back to the MAP test. As I mentioned before, the MAP test does many things in our district. One thing that it does, of course, is it measures achievement. And the other thing that it does is it measures student growth. So it allows us to really look to see how well are our students progressing from the fall administration to the spring administration. It tells us how our students are growing compared to others who take this test across the nation. And it's reported in the same way, a percentile, but now instead of talking about how many students our average exceeded, it talks about how many students our growth exceeded. So if you look at the graph all the way to the left, you'll see 2014, 2015 in blue was 46 for math. That meant in that year, the average student in District 15 grew better than 46% of other students in that area across the nation. You can see that in math, it's varied between 46 to 51 to 48. That's a relatively stable pattern, and it's above the target that the district has adopted as its minimum level of growth that we expect when we calculate the statistic. This is related to how we look at ourselves and decide whether or not we are meaningfully impacting growth. So we have a consistent performance above that level. In reading, you can see it's slightly higher, and it ranges from a high of 53 to a low of 51. All those are very stable, and again, they are consistently above the target. So when we look at this overall, we see that we have a pattern of pretty strong PARCC performance, pretty strong MAP performance. We see that there's a difference between reading on MAP and ELA, English Language Arts, on PARCC. And we see that as possibly a difference between how our curriculum prepares our kids to address those two types of different testing environments.
Dr. Edgar, can I interrupt for a second?
Yeah.
Does a target of 45, if it was a long-term target, would that have us getting caught up by, losing ground? Or, by nature, if it's not at least 50, are we setting ourselves up for decline in the earlier exhibit?
Well, the answer actually is no. If you were always at 45, the answer could be yes. The reason that it's at 45 is because we're adjusting for the amount of error in the test, so that we have some degree of buffer between being not exactly at the 50 and still being in the average range.
Okay. So the intent is to move with at least the norm.
Yes. We actually have several goals that are in different categories. Our highest goal is to be at 70 or above, which is exceeding the peer group. Okay. So this is a range. This is the lowest part of a range where we say this is the minimum that we would really like to see.
Okay.
Okay, so far we have looked at the information from last year and over the past few years, and now we're going to switch to look at a cohort. So this is a group of students who were with us since at least 2nd grade, which is when we start giving the MAP test, through 8th grade, so they're current freshmen this year. And this graph shows you their achievement over time. So it again shows their average percentile in reading and math. And as you can see, it's stayed fairly stable or just gone a little bit up, which is what we would like to see. So for example, they started at the 57th percentile in reading and moved up to the 62nd percentile in reading. So this is a way to look at what's our impact for students who are within District 15 for an extended period of time. And this is their overall average in those two areas. And we understand that this gives us a global view of our students, but yet we have a lot of diversity within our district. And we want to dig a little bit deeper into this cohort that you just saw. And now we're looking at groups of students in relation to risk factors that we want to make sure that we keep a focus on and that we monitor to ensure that all of our students are learning. So the three groups that you're seeing here in both reading and math are students who receive English language learner services, students who are low income, and students who have individual education plans and receive services through special education. So what this helps us see is the average achievement for students who are members of these groups. And again, the target is that 50th percentile again. And it helps us look at the areas that we would need to focus in a little bit more on and be mindful of. One of the highlights I want to point out here is that students may not necessarily stay in these groups over time. For example, if a student is an English language learner, they can be a target and no longer be in the program because they've achieved a certain level with their oral language proficiency. So for a second grade, you have a much higher number of students in this category that by 8th grade, we go down to about 100 students compared to hundreds that were in the program before 3rd grade. So those are some of the things to be mindful of that the students can exit within these categories. So by 8th grade, you're seeing that same group who are still within these programs over time. So for the most part, like for example, about 80% of our students will exit the English language learner category, by the time that they leave us from District 15. This also helps us really understand our achievement gap and helps us with informing our board goal around the achievement gap as we dig deeper into this data to really further understand the needs of our students and their learning. So the final piece of data that we have to show is around how our District 15 students end up in high school. So the first graph is looking at graduation rates. So in the blue, you'll see District 15. So this is showing us the average graduation rate for students who attended District 15 schools who are in District 211. And then it's comparing it to students who are in District 211 but not from District 15 schools. So you can see the graduation rate is equivalent. It's the same. The other data point here is the percent of students who took advanced placement courses while they were in District 211 high schools. And you'll see that District 15 students, 66% took at least one or more AP course, compared to 64% of non-District 15 students. So it shows that the District 15 students are doing well, graduating at the same rate, and taking advanced placement courses during their time in high school. So we're able to prepare them for those rigorous classes. So overall, what you just saw is a general overview of our overall district achievement. And there are many different initiatives that we have going on within the district to help continue our successes and to continue to help students grow and meet the needs of all of our learners. For example, we're in our second year of our school improvement initiative across the district, and we've also recently partnered with the state to help even increase our capacity and the work that we're doing around school improvement. We're in our second year of our math curriculum adoption, and we're also starting with our science adoption as well across the district. We've had a focus this year on really helping teachers use classroom data in literacy and the other content areas to get a better sense of how their students are learning. They're like temperature checks that teachers can use day to day to impact teaching and learning, opposed to just the type of data you saw right now, which is more standardized assessment. So we're really helping teachers use that classroom information more to help all the students as well. We also have several projects related to equity and related to opportunity and access so that our students have that best opportunity they can to be available for learning. So overall, our goal is to really help continue to see all the students grow. And like I said, this is a snapshot. So right now, we're working on that board goal around the achievement gap. And so at the end of the year, around June, we'll be able to see more in-depth information around our student learning. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions for?
Yeah, I had a quick question with the second to last slide, with breaking down into the ELL, low income, and special ed. With regard to the special ed, how are we defining those? Are they everyone that has an IEP? Is it just those who have, if somebody has a articulation IEP, are they grouped into that as well? Are we taking them out? And who is that? Who's the special ed revolving around in this slide?
Yeah, so this is if they have an IEP. So that would include speech and language,
Okay.
including articulation for this cohort.
I had a question with regards to the Logramos test. I guess which students fall into that category? Like, how do you categorize which students are going to take that test?
So the Logramos test, the students who have a native language in Spanish and have received content instruction in Spanish during their time in District 15. So, for example, there are students who might have a native language in Spanish who receive ELL resource. In other words, they receive rotating time with a specialist to help their acquisition of English. Those students would not be participating in this. It would be those students who actually have content through, I think, what we call the bilingual program, where they actually have their instruction occurring in Spanish for a period of time.
Okay, so once they reach a certain level of proficiency in English, then they move on. They no longer will be taking this test, right?
I think they still take the test.
They still take
So as a student, their native language is in Spanish, and they receive content instruction, even though they may not be an ELL student anymore, they've phased out of that, they still receive this test to track their skill development in Spanish.
Okay, so they take it the whole time then, all the way through 8th grade?
Well, we're adding grades as we phase it in. I think right now we're at 5th grade.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I had a question. Just I think it's the slide that you had on Park. Maybe I just read it wrong, or something, but you mentioned that the mathematics was increasing in terms of the percentage of meeting or exceeding the percentage, and I see that it doesn't. I mean, from 2015 to 2017 on that 3-year graph. Yeah, I see maybe the one. I'm actually, because my iPad is out, so I have.
No.
Yeah.
I think Zubair,
It's showing up on my.
No, I think, let me address, I think I know what you're trying to. So when we were reviewing this, I think maybe on your particular copy, the legend was flipped. So ELA is the orange one that is showing the pattern, and math is the blue is going across. And I think
that one's showing the
yes.
consistency because the curriculum. I was just trying to connect that because it was good to hear that the curriculum is matching with the test, but then I was looking at this graph and I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah, no, that was our mistake.
Yeah.
Good catch.
Okay, thank you.
On the ELL, where you explained that people move in and out of the cohort, is there a way to get a view of either the end group, just that cohort, or either everybody that otherwise would have departed it? Because it seems like that can explain the dip, but it's hard to see if there would actually be growth within either or both of those groups. Is that a view we can get?
We can get that to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other thing, Cheryl, correct me if I'm wrong, but we've had a large influx of migrants in the past couple years, particularly this year, and these migrants usually come without education, without a strong background in Spanish, and then they're thrown into the groups. So the groups that start in 2nd grade aren't the same group that's being tested.
So it's not a cohort that you walk in and just follow them?
So we have both. This particular look is at that cohort to dig a little bit deeper.
Okay.
But you're absolutely right. We have multiple ways that we're able to
you
look at
could
the
look at it from
outcomes
different
and considerations around when the students enter and the supports they received and everything.
Yeah, because I agree. There's a lot that can muddy it. This just seems like a good way to get a time view of how you're progressing if it's truly a cohort view.
Do you mind if I say something? Sure. I think just in my mind, this slide here, I think just what's important about this as a message, and there's certainly a lot of ways that it could be broken down further. For example, this ELL portion, it only contains those students who continue to have that designation throughout. So the 8th grade, for example, those students that are in there, they've had the designation the entire way through. So, right. So, and it doesn't capture how those students look who exited. And what we were trying to show with this is that, it's important to understand that even though we're trying to give a large view to the district where the average is emphasized, we're very much cognizant that the average can camouflage things. And we want to just show that we are very vigilant and very dedicated to monitoring all our students. And, these are some of the factors that we know can place a student more at risk than those without. And we just want to illustrate that, as even though we're talking about the larger district view, this is also important just to be mindful of. And I think when we go to the achievement gap report, where we're actually asking questions like, well, what does it look like if you exit? Do you have a different trajectory? We'll have much more information and a more thorough conversation in June around that.
Yeah, because that was going to be my other question is we typically do it on the risk categorizations of things, but even just a quartile view or some some break that would show, because there's multiple ways to move that average, and it, like you said, a lot can get masked in the average, but if there's a way to see if the lower quartile is moving up, at the same time the top quartile is getting challenged, and you're moving all of them versus one group.
That, in fact, is exactly the approach we're taking.
Look forward to it.
Yep, us too.
So just a quick question. So in this data here, you've got kids that are actually moving out of the ELL category, so really that sample size is actually getting smaller as you're moving from 2nd grade to 8th grade.
Yes, it's approximately around over 200 down to 100.
Okay.
Yeah, approximately. So there's many more students and it's even higher in K through 1, but we only have 2nd because MAP doesn't start till 2nd. So many students exit by 3rd grade. But then students will continue to exit over time. So this is really highlighting more long-term English language learners and the needs of that group in particular as well.
And going back to what you said earlier, although many students exit the program, there also are a base group of students that end up in the program continuously from the beginning through the end, that no matter the help and support they're given, they still retain a position in that program till the end.
Exactly.
One more question is, going back to the slide that Zubair asked the comment on with the math and literacy imperative right at the beginning there. Are we currently looking, you mentioned something about updated curriculum. Are we looking at any kind of updated curriculum for the literacy component of our offering?
Hello.
Hello. See, I thought I could get her up here.
We definitely are. We're going to be starting, when I say this, Colleen cringes, but in 3 weeks, we're going to be, right after winter break, we're going to be looking at rolling out our pilot for the Fontes and Pinnell classroom, which is very highly regarded, and we're really looking forward to seeing some really good results from our kids. And that's going to be K through 3, and then we'll be working on phasing it in.
How does that pilot look, Dr. Schnorr? What is it?
It's not nearly as big as our math pilot. We hadn't had a pilot in so long when it came to the pilot that we did for math. We did over 90 classrooms for math, and for reading, it's going to be significantly smaller. Our science pilot was a lot smaller too. It was only 4 or 5 schools, but although we weren't able to do all of the schools, we always made sure that we had a school, we call it Midtown, East Side, and West Side, and making sure that we had representation in our ELL classrooms as well as special education. So I think that that's the formula that we're working with moving forward. As far as the exact number of classrooms, Colleen, how many?
It'd be K2 through about 3 schools.
Okay.
And it's a multifaceted pilot because there's so many materials, there's so many parts that we're looking at. So we're trying to go inch wide, mile deep versus 2 too big across the district. We're really trying to understand it better as we move forward.
And simultaneously, in addition to getting new materials, we really have been working very hard. Colleen and her group have been working really hard to make sure that our teachers are changing their instruction. The Reader's Workshop model is, it's in place, but we need to really up our game, and I think that we're going to see some significant results.
Bless you.
Thank you.
So if I could reiterate, the cycle for revamping the English language arts curriculum begins in a pilot this year, and then next year would be kindergarten through second grade, and then, or third grade? Third, and then each year you add another grade, is that the plan?
We're looking at phasing it in. Definitely next year would be K through 3, so starting in August would be K through 3, and then we're going to be looking at the upper grades. We're not sure if we're going to do one grade at a time, or if we're going to continue doing about 3 grades at a time. We're still looking at that. A lot of it's going to depend on the resources that we have available, and if I stay in Mr. Adamczyk's good graces.
All right. Any other questions?
Excellent report, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Mike.
The last few items in my section, the first one is later in the agenda, the board will be asked to approve a collective bargaining agreement with the SEIU, our Service International Union employees, and I'd like to congratulate our board members that were part of the negotiating team, the entire negotiating team, and I'd like to turn it over to Mike and Barb to talk a little bit about the negotiation process and what the contract entails.
Let me go?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So we began negotiations about the end of July. Had a couple of sessions, kind of, I guess you could call them feeling out sessions, obviously, with Barb and I being new to the board, getting to know the members of the negotiating team on SEIU. We came in open-minded, not really knowing what to expect with the process. We're very thankful to the SEIU negotiating team. They came in. They were looking to get a deal done as well. So as far as the negotiating goes, there were some tense moments, but I think we all worked for the betterment of both sides and worked together to it. A couple of highlights that we did go ahead and institute in there is we did do a 2% wage increase annually. We extended the probationary period for new hires. It's a 90 days with the option to extend it for another 90 days if there's a need to do so. We have had a small issue based on past attendance, so we ironed those issues out as well. We did offer a retirement incentive that's going to sunset after at the end of 2018. That's eligible only to 7 employees. And we did increase some stipends for a couple of the, I guess you would call them trade positions, to ensure that those who actually were putting an effort to better themselves, which in turn would better the district, that we took note of that, and we went ahead and incentivized that as well.
Tool allowances, we increased tool allowances for a few different positions. That's it in a nutshell, yeah.
Yeah, those are the highlights. We worked hard to get it done. Again, negotiating team on the district side and as well as on SEIU side. As I said, there were some tense moments, but I think we all came in with the understanding that this was working for the betterment of the district, and I think that we worked well together once we felt each other out and figured out how it was going to go. So I was happy to be a part of it, and I'm happy that we're moving forward on it, and I'm looking forward to ratifying it today.
Congratulations to the entire team for the good work. If this board remembers that in June, I asked the board to approve salary increases, hourly rate increases for those members of our organization that aren't a part of a union, but aren't on the administrative staff. Those are our non-affiliated staff members, and we agreed that we would give them the average of all the increases of all the bargaining groups, and that now that everything is settled, all the groups have gotten their wage increases, the average comes to 2%, and so that'll be a part of the personnel report later on tonight. And so I just want to let you know that you'll be approving that 2% increase for those employees that aren't a part of a union. So I would also give you a little update on the boundary goal. The goal to kind of examine boundaries and the future configurations of schools and making sure we have space for kids in the future. Also, I think a little part of that is full-day kindergarten. I have met with a couple citizens from the community that have shown interest. Nipesh Patel and Sid Aman have volunteered to be co-chairs to kind of help me in getting the process started. They reached out actually with me to Kellogg School at Northwestern to see if there was graduate students that wanted to take this project on to help us with the boundary issues. They also contacted a professor there that has a connection with the consultant in Evanston that may be interested in helping us. And so we're investigating getting some outside facilitators to come in and help us. And our Citizens Committee for Community Engagement is also interested in this process, and they've volunteered to offer their support and be a part of the process as well. So we're planning that in January we should really start hitting the ground and having some definitive direction on making sure we can get some information presented to the board on possible ideas for the boundaries in the future. So it's kind of invigorating. It's exciting. And I also have a little information on our goal for a dual language school for next year. And so I'd ask Dr. Cheryl Wolfel to come up and tell us a little about the progress we've made on investigating the potential of dual language schools in District 15 next year.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. Good evening, everyone. So we are excited. We are on target. We met in October with 2 consultants from Dual Language New Mexico, and they were the group that were instrumental in helping U46 Elgin with their successful program of dual language. We had a district-level committee. Barb was part of that, and we had principals, district office, and then the consultants. They were here for 2 days, and they did a site visit and a program evaluation visit. So we had a good discussion, I think, the first, for about 4 hours at district office. They wanted information on the district and on their schools and to really get a feel about where the district was. Then we spent 2 days in 4 schools. And in those schools, we met with our administrative teams, parents, gen ed teachers, and bilingual parents and bilingual teachers. And there were questions and answers. We got to walk through classrooms. They got to actually experience what the schools were like. Then we came back and regrouped. And they just recently returned their site evaluation and their program evaluation report. So we're still looking that over. We're still going back and forth with them on some questions that we have and the questions that they had still. So the plan moving ahead is that in January, we're going to bring together our original district committee and go over the report and then decide on what sites that we will begin dual language in 2018. And then in February, we're going to go out with parent information meetings at those sites to explain what dual language is, the benefits, the research behind it, so that everybody's kind of on the same page. We will be bringing back the New Mexican consultants again, and they want to meet with site-specific committees, which will consist of parents, bilingual and gen ed, bilingual and gen ed teachers, site-level administration, so that we can really get down to the details to what that rollout will look like. They are very confident that the district has a lot of strengths already in place to start dual language, and that we will be able to successfully begin in the fall of 2018. So that's all good
Dr.
news.
Wolfel, what schools are we looking at to start? Do we have an idea of that yet?
We're still evaluating that.
Okay.
Okay, so that's exciting news.
That is exciting.
Okay, all right.
You know,
Nice work.
Dr. Wolfel is an expert in this field, but even she learned some things from these consultants that came. So
Yeah, it was a very good 2 days, I thought.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was very good.
And the other thing that was shared, I don't think Alicia will mind, but Alicia Corrigan, our Assistant Director for Special Education, she's told a story about both of her children in Gurnee, District 50, participating in a dual language program. And she said just last year she told us with a big grin on her face that her daughter woke up, or she actually heard her daughter dreaming in Spanish. And so her kids talk to Spanish to each other, even though her youngest is a kindergartner. So she's definitely an advocate and a real-life story about how impactful it can be. So we're excited about it. And thanks for your hard work, Dr. Wolfel.
Thank you.
That is it for my section.
All right, moving on, may I have a motion for the reading and acceptance of minutes, please?
I make a motion to approve the minutes from the following meetings of the Board of Education: November 4th, 2017 Special Board of Education Meeting and Executive Session, and the November 8th, 2017 Regular Board of Education Meeting and Executive Session as presented.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Iannarino,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Khan,
Aye.
Smolka,
Aye.
Chupai,
Aye.
Wong.
Aye.
Motion carries. We will commence the board discussion and reports, starting with Ed Red Council legislation. Mr. Iannarino.
There's not too much going on right now because the legislature is not in session. They're not going to be back until I believe it's the end of January. So the last thing that was really hot was the property tax freeze, which the House passed. So that's going to be picked up again when they come back in session. So we'll see what happens there. But otherwise, that's about it.
Thanks, Frank. 1-5 Foundation, Mrs. Kane.
Yes, the 1-5 Foundation just wrapped up their winter fundraiser, which was a staff tribute opportunity for people, so somebody could make a donation in the name of any staff member, teacher, or any other staff member, support staff, custodians, anybody that they wanted to that works in the district, to let them know that they're appreciated. And anybody who receives a donation in their name will get a cool card and recognition on the 1-5 website, I think on the district website too. And then that money will go into the foundation fund, which is used to fund all sorts of classroom activities and learning opportunities in our schools. So thank you to anybody who contributed.
Thanks, Barb. Finance Committee, Mr. Border or Mr. Wong?
We didn't have any meetings this month, so nothing to report.
Great, thank you. Equity Committee, Mr. Cobb, Mr. Smolka?
So we had a meeting, Dr. Edgar and Dr. Swanlin as well, about some of the data they had sent us earlier prior to the last meeting. And I think the biggest takeaway from the meeting was just to kind of understand that they're already putting together, but pursuant to the number one board goal we had this year, they're already putting together this presentation that's going to be presented in June that they kind of alluded to today, which will focus on the achievement gap, which is something that we're investigating as well. And we found a good way that we could work together on that process, where they're going to, as they put together that presentation, the committee will be meeting with them at certain benchmark times where we can come in and try to understand their data at that point and ask the relevant questions that we hear from the community, or just what we hear from the community, so we can kind of steer in a way, or at least the public has a stake in the presentation itself. So that was something that I thought was a great suggestion, and that I'm all on board with as a good way to analyze the problem and have some board input. The other part of it, we have set up, we just talked to Dr. Wolfel today, but to set up a meeting with her to kind of understand a little bit more of historically what's happened in the programs that are currently going on in the district. It's always tough when you have a committee and at the risk, you don't want to risk the idea that we're just reinventing the wheel over and over and over and over again. So I just wanted to we're going to be talking to Dr. Wolfel, get a chance to maybe go to the community schools that were discussed today at Winston, to understand, to go actually witness the community school in action. Also, there's already mechanisms in place where people are reaching out to parents, bilingual parents and other parents who are part of what we're looking at. And so we look to tag along on some of those meetings so we can talk directly to parents to see their perspective. And again, just all part of understanding some community input and then being part of this, seeing what the presentation. At the end of the day, the June presentation obviously is going to be very, very important for the board goal, and we are excited to be involved.
Excellent. Thank you, Zubair. Anything to add, Mike?
I mean, I will just reiterate kind of what Mr. Khan said, that it was nice to go into this meeting and, our questions were answered because the process had already been started. I think it's nice to know that, this board set some goals out a couple of months ago, and they are being worked towards in the background, even if we don't know what's going on. So I just wanted to reiterate that point, that it was nice to go into that meeting, and really, you had some questions on your mind, and before I even got a chance to answer them, they were answered for me. So, that was very reassuring that things are going well. So, thank you.
Thank you. And I think that goes for a number of the board goals that, thanks for pointing it out, Mike, but there's a lot of activity in the background that's happening, and we very much appreciate the amount of effort. Next on the board discussion list, board policy. There were first readings of a number of different policy items in your board packets. If anybody has any questions or commentary. Next, we've got Dr. Thompson with the Superintendent's Communication Committee.
We did not meet, and we have nothing to report.
There you go. Nice and easy. We will move on to citizens address the board. If anybody would like to address, these forms can be filled out and given to Mrs. Becker. Public comments. We'll open the meeting for public comment. Please remember that this is not a dialogue between you and the board. If you have a specific issue which requires a response, Dr. Thompson will get back to you very quickly with your answer. State your name, identify any group that you represent, limit your remarks to no more than 5 minutes. If someone previously has articulated something that you would like to discuss, state that you agree, rather than reiterating the entire comment. And finally, avoid any kind of comment specific to any person, student, or staff member, respecting their right to privacy. First person up, Mr. Len Green.
Please give me a 4-minute warning if I get that far.
A full minute?
A full minute, which will be a full minute ahead of 5, yeah. But I hope not to get too far.
Okay, I'll give you a signal. So.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, members of the board and members of the public present. I've got 2 topics I wanted to cover tonight. I'll be as quickly as I can, so pardon the rush if I speak quickly. First one is the ESPA contract situation or status. Last meeting I addressed the board on why I thought your offer was a fair one and should be accepted. A couple of developments that I wanted to mention that have happened since that last meeting. The October CPI inflation rate was announced just the other day at 2%. It's the same as the board offer, I believe. It's also what many economic forecasters are projecting in the near future. As mentioned earlier in the meeting today, the SEIU deal was settled at a 2% rate as well. Also, a macro factor out there is that recently the Tribune has exposed a lot of what seems to be massive inequities in the property valuation practices run by that paragon of selfless public service and transparency, Joseph Furios. Reform is what everyone wants out of that office, everybody, for the certainty of property tax obligations and property tax revenues. But predicting how that's going to turn out right now is very difficult. There's a study that's underway, but Berrios is refusing to give any status updates on where that group is going. These developments underscore my view of the fairness of the board's offer. The other reality is the revenue pie remains what it is. The PTAL adjustment for next year is only 0.7%, and that's the reality that we've got to deal with. So netting it out, I think it's time for us to settle down, finalize the deal, and get back to re-engaging the community as a whole. We all need to move on to the strategic planning exercise, which is well overdue, to set this district on the path for the future. And it's time to find out who wants to help with that. I'd honestly urge ESPA members to come together with the community and the board and sign that deal. Thanks. The second topic I want to just address very briefly is the Motorola TIF topic. I attended the Village of Schaumburg committee meeting last month where they discussed this topic, and I had a chance to have discussions with that with the village board members and had an interactive Q&A session with them, really wanting to just point out a few concerns that myself and other Palatine residents had regarding the impact of that TIF as it stood right now on D15. And I asked for opportunities simply for the village and the developer to engage with us, because it is clearly a very Schaumburg-centric activity, the TIF is. I came away understanding that both the village and the developer are doing separate studies to project what likely student numbers could be expected with that residential development. When that happens, I'm not quite certain. However, I do want to point out that the Village of Schaumburg public hearing process around the TIF, the zoning of the properties, starts early next year. So I'd like to ask us all to get really informed about this and to get involved with the village. Thanks.
I appreciate your commentary with regard to the outstanding concerns with ESPA. Right now, we are focused on one of the things that you commented on, which is moving forward and continuing the process of repairing relationships within the community for the benefit of our students, our staff, and the community itself. And I hope that that continues and that we can come to some beneficial agreement where we can be positive together moving forward. As far as the Motorola TIF goes, we are actively involved. Dr. Thompson has had an ongoing conversation with Brian Townsend of Schaumburg, and we anticipate being involved in what they're doing moving forward so that we're on top of it. But thank you, Lynn. Thank you. Next, we will cover action items, starting with item 17-1220, the personnel report. May I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the December 13, 2017 personnel report as revised, including the following recommendations. Recommendation for termination, Adam Barrett. Recommendation for termination, James Duffy. And recommendation for termination, Inigo Espinoza.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Order.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Khan.
Aye.
Smolka.
Aye.
Shupai.
Aye.
Wong.
Aye.
And Reno.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 17-1221. May I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the ratification of the 2017 through 2021 Service Employees International Union, SEIU, agreement as recommended.
Second?
Second.
Discussion. I have only one comment on the discussion. Thank you guys for taking part in the bargaining sessions with SEIU. We appreciate the amount of effort and the time that was put in and successful completion of the contract.
Team effort. Lots of people involved. So thank you to everyone for giving up your time and for being open to conversation.
Yep, that goes for you guys too. Roll call, please.
Kane.
Aye.
Khan.
Aye.
Smolka.
Aye.
Shupai.
Aye.
Wong.
Aye.
And Reno.
Aye.
Order.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 17-1222. May I have a motion, please?
Make a motion to approve the certificate of tax levy for 2017 as presented and include the following levy resolutions. Certificate of compliance with the Truth in Taxation Law, Certificate of Tax Levy, Resolution authorizing special education levy, Resolution authorizing reduction of certain fund levies for the 2017 levy year, and Resolution authorizing final aggregate tax levy of the year 2017.
Second?
Second.
Discussion?
We received no comments from the preview from the past 30 days, so I think everything's good to go.
All right. Roll call.
Khan.
Aye.
Smolka.
Aye.
Shupai.
Aye.
Wong.
Aye.
And Reno.
Aye.
Order.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye. Motion carries. Item 17-1223. May I have a motion, please?
Make a motion for the approval of the 2019-20 official school calendar as recommended.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Smolka.
Aye.
Shupai.
Aye.
Wong,
Aye.
Iannarino,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Con.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 171224, may I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to award the contract for the teacher and principal evaluation system bid 18-002 to Talent Ed People Admin, Austin, Texas, for a total amount of $56,740 as recommended. The recommendation is based on low bid vendors meeting specifications.
Second?
Second.
Discussion?
Lisa, do you want to describe briefly why we need this software?
Sure. What the software does is it houses all of our documentation for our evaluations, and it gives a way for electronic communication to be gone between the principal and the evaluating teacher. So instead of having papers going back and forth, it houses it all. It also does a number of different functions, which keeps us on timelines and has communication that goes back and forth electronically through the system. We had piloted one 2 years ago, and which we had mixed results from, and then it was discontinued. So we had to start our process over again. I'd like to thank Adam Palmer, who led that team that looked at different systems along with other administrators and our CTC representatives.
I got a question. Is there a yearly maintenance fee for the system?
I'm going to refer to Adam.
I believe all that is contained within that 3-year bid.
Okay, so everything's contained in the 3-year bid, and then after 3 years?
We'll reevaluate.
Okay.
Further discussion? No? Roll call.
Shupai,
Aye.
Wong,
Aye.
Iannarino,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Con,
Aye.
Smolka.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 171225, motion, please?
I make a motion to award the contract for the electronic communications system bid 18-008 to Pentegra Systems in Addison, Illinois, for a total amount of $24,482. This recommendation is based on low bid vendor meeting the bid specifications.
Second?
Second.
Discussion?
Yeah, this is kind of broad, and I asked Mike earlier today what this was. It's a very broad definition. It's just our PA system. So I just wanted to clarify that because it's a very broad definition on the agenda of what actually this is.
I was going to ask the same thing.
When I looked at the agenda, I was like, I don't know what this is, so I asked, so yes.
Yep.
It is definitely a safety measure, though, with today's era. We need to be able to communicate with classrooms, and so this is an important piece of technology.
Old school, but very important nonetheless. The old system is defunct, or is it?
Yeah, it's failing, and so we need to replace it.
Any other discussion? Roll call?
Wong,
Aye.
Iannarino,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Con,
Aye.
Smolka,
Aye.
Shupai.
Aye. Motion carries. Item 171226, motion, please?
I make a motion for the approval of the Board of Education 2017-18 meeting schedule as revised.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Thanks, everybody, for their flexibility in moving the meeting dates. I think we're finally at a point that we're stable right now.
Everybody have their summer vacations figured out?
Yeah, we moved June, right, already?
That was my fault.
That was it. Roll call, please.
Iannarino,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Con,
Aye.
Smolka,
Aye.
Shupai,
Aye.
Wong.
Aye.
Motion carries. Consent calendar. Would anybody like to remove anything from the consent calendar? No? All right, may I have a motion to approve the consent calendar, please?
I have a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Second?
Second.
Roll call?
Porter,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Con,
Aye.
Smolka,
Aye.
Shupai,
Aye.
Wong,
Aye.
Iannarino.
Aye.
Motion carries. Dr. Thompson, correspondence?
As I read these 11 FOIA requests and responses to you, I would ask Julie to put the video up of our holiday concert by performed by CLA today, that Morgan did that, and we'll conclude our meeting with that after I'm done reading this. So there are 11 requests and responses under the Freedom of Information Act during the period of November 3rd through December 7th. On October 20th, 2017, a request was received from Brian Baer, Whitlaw LLC, Aurora, Illinois. The response to this request was sent on November 3rd. On November 1st, a request was received from Scott Hare, Palatine, Illinois. The response to this request was sent on November 7th. On November 2nd, a request was received from Kevin Lawson, Lombard, Illinois. The response to this request was sent on November 8th. On November 3rd, a request was received from Ryan Jane, Freedom of Religion Foundation. The response to this request was sent on November 17th. Bless you. On November 7th, a request was received from Scott Hare, Palatine, Illinois. The response to this request was sent on November 14th. On November 13th, a request was received from Kurt Stepping, Peoria, Illinois. The response to this request was sent on November 16th. On November 14th, a request received from Julie Calamia. The response to this request was sent on November 30th. On November 17th, a request received from Casey Bartnick, Rolling Meadows, Illinois. The response to this request was sent on November 22nd. On November 17th, a request received from Linda Lutton, WBEZ Radio. The response to this request was sent on November 28th and 29th and 30th. On November 21st, a request received from Sandra Brenner, Palatine, Illinois. The response to this request was sent on December 7th. And finally, on November 27th, a request received from Robert Probst, Advanced Disposal, Melrose Park, Illinois. The response to this request was sent on November 30th. So today, the students from CLA went to a retirement home, and they performed their holiday concert. And thought we'd end the meeting and begin the holiday season with this concert. That last performance, thank you. Matthew is quite the character. He really enjoys doing that. Pablo is the singer that sings there, and he's pretty entertaining as well. A lot of these children have significant
Good morning, everyone.
challenges.
Thank you for tuning in to episode 5 of District 55. I'm Morgan Delac, the chief.
It's really humble to see the teachers and the staff that dedicate time and energy and compassion to these kids. We have PAs that have been there for a long time. We have teachers that have been there a long time. Elise Hackle is the music teacher that spends a lot of time making sure that these kids have some outlets every day, and it's really humbling to see that group. And there were a bunch of parents there that were extremely proud of their kids, and it was a great holiday experience for me, and I appreciate all the things that are done at CLA, so I thought I'd share that with you. Thanks, Morgan.
It's fantastic.
I love that it's the same conceptually, where you have some children that are thrilled to be doing it and some that look terrified. Thank you, everybody, for coming. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thanks, happy holidays, and